Unholy Death Knight, it's time to go green. We're going to save the planet by recycling corpses, that is, with cards like Grave Strength as well as Marrowgar. Seriously though, Unholy Death Knight, a very strong deck in the current meta. It's a deck that I've been having a lot of success with recently. Unfortunately, my deck tracker is broken by the most recent Hearthstone patch, so I wanted to take a quick look at the list before we jump into some gameplay. And what you're going to notice is that this list feels very, very familiar. Unholy Death Knight, really a deck that's been around for about 6 months. Everything that you've learned previously about this deck is still going to apply to this newest version. The deck is going to play exactly the same. We want to develop a wide board, and then be able to buff it with a Bloodlust-like effect in the form of Grave Strength, and then just be able to finish off our opponent. Mulligan likely going to look exactly the same. We want some early game. We're going to be keeping some of these early game minions like Arms Dealer, like Body Bagger. Battlefield Necromancer is always also going to be a keep. I like to keep Plague Strike if I'm in a matchup where I know my opponent is going to be playing minions early in the game. If you think about something like Spell Demon Hunter, you know they're not going to be playing minions, so you would never want to keep the Plague Strike here. And then also sometimes I think you're going to be wanting to keep Hawkstride or Rancher, but I feel like it's probably more important to make sure that you have at least a 1-drop in hand and to be able to curve out just a little bit. I likely would not be keeping Hawkstride or Rancher if I was going first, unless I already had maybe some earlier game turns as well, just because you have to hit the board early with this deck to be able to find some success with it. But outside of that, the deck, again, looking exactly like it always has. One addition from the newest set is going to be Pozic. This card, potentially pretty good. I know a lot of people like it. I wouldn't necessarily keep this card in the mulligan. I think, again, it's just a little bit too slow. Being 4 mana, we're going to want to keep some of our early game. But if we draw this and we're able to play it on like turn 3 or turn 4, I think we're going to be pretty happy with that play. If you don't have this deck from the newest set, you could easily replace this with some other minion and honestly be just fine. So if you don't have this card, don't worry about it. Just find something else that you can play and it should be doing just good. Just good. Holy crap. I can't believe that I just said you'll be doing just good. That's a blooper that I'm going to leave in the final cut. Up against Warrior here, I'm assuming it's got to be like some kind of Blackrock Warrior. That's really the only Warrior that people are playing. We keep the Arms Dealer. We're going to toss the other two. Astalor is a 2-mana minion, but you don't want it in your opening hand. Battlefield Necromancer, really happy to see one of these. Should we just get down to 1-drop and go? I was really happy with the title of this video, by the way, Going Green with Unholy Death Knight. I started to do what a lot of the other content creators do, and say something like, Unholy Death Knight, this deck is broken, and then maybe slap that #1 legend symbol on the thumbnail. Then I realized that the deck is not actually broken, and that I'm also not #1 legend, so I decided against that. I was pretty happy with the way things turned out. Looks like it's going to be Menagerie Warrior. And the Menagerie Warrior is actually off to an absolutely insane start here, which is good for them, bad for us. So I'm just going to keep making plays here and doing the best I can to be able to take over this board. I actually have not played this matchup with this specific deck. Also of note, I think I've won like 8 games in a row. I'm probably due for a loss. Hearthstone doesn't usually let you get away with winning that many games in a row that often. But we're going to do the best we can. Our hand isn't really doing anything. We've kind of drawn our top-end cards. Vizier is going to be a nice pickup, though. Maybe we can get something playable. And unfortunately, none of these are playable, so starting to feel like a game where maybe Hearthstone has selected me for a loss. I really don't want to use my corpses on Corpse Explosion, so I'm just going to grab the Sunwell here. And I'm going to go ahead and make this trade, and unfortunately I'm going to have to pass. May not even ever actually play this card. We're going to lose our Battlefield Necromancer. Again, our hand just not really doing a whole lot this game. Our opponent is taking the board here. And it feels like we're going to struggle. The one thing that may save us is our opponent may actually run out of cards. Again, I'm going to look for what I hope is going to be something playable. Or something good. And Howling Blast may actually be it. If we had minions in hand, this would actually be insane. The 1/1s with Reborn is an interesting choice, though. It allows us to go wide, and we already have the Marrowgar in hand. We want to get as many corpses as we can for the Marrowgar. So I think I'm actually going to do this. The amount of corpses that's going to be coming off of this is actually pretty insane here. And I think I'm just going to go ahead... I'm just going to push face here and pass it back to the opponent. We also had the Grave Strength in hand. Important to keep in mind. We want to stay wide. Again, corpses are good. Sylvanas looks like it could be infused. Maybe we actually want to hang on to this for if they actually play the big boy amalgam. I feel like Warrior's probably not discovering good spells here either. At least I hope they're not. They draw a minion and buff it, but it doesn't impact the board immediately. So we're okay with that. The Sylvanas is actually infused, and the rest of our hand isn't doing much of anything at all whatsoever. I kind of feel like I just need to go ahead and play the Sylvanas. If our opponent does hit the 7 mana amalgam, we're just going to have to live with it. I need to make the strongest possible play here, so I'm going to steal the biggest minion that I can. And I think I'm going to take one value trade, and then I'm going to push face. This prevents our opponent from being able to totally remove one of the shambling zombies by double trading here. Again, just trying to stay wide with the Grave Strength in hand. And again, we're just kind of depending on what we're going to be top decking here to be able to find a play. Our opponent, though, is struggling just a little bit for plays. Grave Strength is active. Is there any way we can push lethal? We have 4, 5, we have 7. Hero power would be 8. 9, 10. And then we would have 5 minions. That would be 15, 25, but we have to get through the taunt. We're not going to have lethal, so I'm going to be wanting to make a different play this turn. So that play is going to look something like this. And you can see here, I mean, I'm pretty much just going out of my way to not play the Sunwell, because that's not really what we want to do with this particular deck. Next turn, we're going to have the Lord Marrowgar. I'm going to go ahead and just take a value trade here and then push face. I don't think that this particular deck runs anything like a Brawl or any kind of board clear. I'm going to stay as wide as possible. Sometimes when you have Lord Marrowgar in hand, it's pretty valuable just to be able to make like 2 or 3 big minions rather than an entire board, especially when you're low on corpses. The 13-14 is absolutely huge, so I do think this is potentially going to be like a Marrowgar play. Unless we actually have lethal here. So again, we'll count our damage. We have 4, 5, plus 12 is only 17. That's not quite going to do it. So I think at this point, I just want to make the Marrowgar play. So I'm going to go ahead and take a trade here. And then I'm going to get down the Lord Marrowgar. And this is going to give us a few rushers here. Likely we're just going to trade for the 1/1. And then we're going to leave this guy in play. And this damage is going to go face. And then we're going to pass it back. We're going to see what our opponent is able to do here. Pretty sure they're not killing us and they're not clearing our board. They do have the Amalgam. And it hit Rush, as well as Lifesteal, as well as Reborn, as well as Taunt. That's probably one of the best of those, I think, that I've ever seen. And I think at this point, we just want to clear our opponent's side of the board. We'll be able to infuse this for card draw. They're going to be out of resources. So I'm just going to go ahead and Blight Fang here. And then just start making some trades. And then this guy can go face. And unfortunately, you know, we just are unable to spend this 4 mana. But again, I'm not really interested in playing the Sunwell. At least in this particular situation. Sunwell can potentially be a good card, but I don't really want random spells. I want minions on the board. I want cards from my deck. It's just other things I feel like would be good. Our opponent does reload a little bit, but nothing spectacular here. And I'm going to start by just drawing cards, unless we have lethal. So we better count again. That's 9, 10, plus 15 is 25. It's actually a little bit off lethal. I do think potentially we're going to check the Vizier. There could be something in here that would allow us to be able to find lethal. We're a little bit off as far as that. Death Strike is going to be only 2 mana. Oh, nope, I'm sorry. It's full cost. I was thinking we had an undead die, so not that big of a deal. A little bit of a miss, not necessarily a misplay, but a little bit not what I was expecting here. We just go ahead and play the Sunwell at this point. I mean, it's not a super big deal. I don't think our opponent is going to... I don't think our opponent's going to be killing us, but... He's going to put another minion on the board. Again, we have the Grave Strength in hand. Likely we're just going to be killing our opponents. Not sure what they could have left that would potentially stop us. I guess if they have a few taunts in play, that might be able to stop us from killing them, but, you know, we're potentially going to be able to remove something with the Death Strike. And then we have the Grave Strength. We'll be able to get the 5th corpse to be able to get it active. So, pretty sure we're winning this game. We just kind of have to go through the motions to be able to get there. Death Strike here, trade a 1/1, and, or actually, we'll get a corpse off of one of these guys. Yeah, these do generate a corpse, so they likely trade. So we'll Death Strike this, and then buff here, and that's actually going to be a win. So, unfortunately, Menagerie Warrior really just not super powerful, so it's going to be a good win for us here. Even missed a little bit of damage, could have hero power to have the extra minion with the Grave Strength, but just not needed. We had the damage anyway. Just good. Holy crap. Back in for another game. If you're still here, you're enjoying the video, I hope you'll consider the like button and the subscribe button. Looks like we got a mage. Likely it's going to be control mage. Not sure how this matchup goes either. I haven't seen a whole lot of mage on the ladder. I'm going to toss the Swarm Guard. I think I want to keep these guys. And I'm going to toss the Vizier. I'm going to keep 2 1-drops here and get rid of the other stuff. Pretty good opening hand here. Against Mage, what we would really want to keep in mind, and looks like it is going to be exactly the Mage deck I was thinking of. Against Mage, what we're going to want to keep in mind is... And I'm just going to body bagger pass. I'm going to hold the coin here. We want to keep in mind Deathborn. We don't want to have a board that's going to allow them to Deathborn and be able to get a bunch of the 2/2 skeletons on the other side. Could potentially be a tough matchup for us. We'll have to see how things go. And I'm basically just going to play cards here. I'm going to remove this so that our opponent can't start gaining a lot of armor. Also, I think it makes it significantly more likely that the arms dealer is going to survive. Just because they won't be able to ping it. But it looks like they will be able to just play this Arcane Bolt to be able to remove it. Not a huge deal here. And again, I'm wanting to keep in mind being able to remove as much of their board as I possibly can. Best play for them on turn 4 is likely going to be Cold Case. I think at this point, just getting down the Hawkstrider Rancher is going to be good. I can take a trade here. And even coin out the Body Bagger. So I'm going to trade there. And then I'm going to just coin out the Body Bagger. This guy can go face. If our opponent plays Cold Case, we're going to be able to play more minions to take advantage of the Hawkstrider Rancher. Again, in the back of my mind, I still just want to be thinking about Deathborn. I think Deathborn is how our opponent really wins this game. And then potentially just, like, randomly creating things. They're running Frozen Touch, which is a pretty interesting choice. And we actually have a second Rancher. The question is, do we want to use it? So the only way that we can spend all of our mana here is to Hero Power and Necrolight. But again, I'm just thinking about the Deathborn. What's going to be the way that we lose this game most likely? I I feel like this guy just survives, though. I'm going to take this trade and go face. We'll see what our opponent does here. I think pretty likely that this rancher is going to survive for at least one turn, and then maybe I can trade off some of my smaller stuff so that the Deathborn doesn't hurt us too bad, assuming they have it. And I definitely need this to die. So I'm going to hit here, activate the Vizier. And could even just Death Strike this, but I think I would rather play minions. So I'm going to take this Dark Transformation. It's going to be 0 mana. Then I can do this. We definitely need to remove this minion, by the way. That's the entire goal for this turn. It's just too dangerous to leave on the board. Unfortunately, our opponent has it on turn 5. They're likely going to be top-decking spell power every single turn. Going to take that trade. And unfortunately, there's not really an undead that I want to target this particular turn. If the Hawkstrider was undead, I would definitely want to turn that into a 4/5. But we're safe against something like a Deathborn. They would only get 1/2/2, which is going to be just fine. We're okay with that. The problem is, you know, if they top deck a 1-drop and they have that with a Deathborn with spell power, it's going to be really bad for us. So, hoping to be able to close out the game really quickly here from this point. Grave Strength would probably be an insane top deck. We've got the corpses, and could potentially even have lethal with the hero power. I think it would be. Unfortunately, not quite that lucky in this particular case. So now the question is, you know, what do we really need to do here? I think we can play around Deathborn. Spell Power Deathborn we're not going to be able to play around, which is a bit unfortunate. I'm going to go ahead and get the Astalor down. Again, we're just going to try to stay as wide as possible here. I'm going to go ahead and trade off this 1/1. Then we can get down the Tour Guide. And we're going to hero power. And again, I mean, the Dark Transformation, I could use it on this. There's not really any other targets that I would want to use it on. So again, I'm just going to hold on to it for the time being, and then we'll pass it back to our opponent. So if our opponent is able to clear the board, we can potentially still win with the Grave Strength top deck. Really, again, just the entire game I've been talking about it. Deathborn is how our opponent is going to be able to win this game, it feels like. Also, some possibility they could randomly create something that would allow them to be able to get the win from here. Outside of that, we should be okay. And you see the spell power here. They're actually sending damage face. We have 5, 8, 10. We have 13, 14. So we're going to want to remove these, but they're going to have they have the solid alibi. They're going to have probably a spell power minion with arcane bolts. So our opponent, unfortunately, just has a lot of things going for him here. I think I want to get the 5/5 on the board. I wish I could get the armor gain from it. That's not going to happen. They're going to have the infused frozen touch. They're going to have 2 arcane bolts. Just have to hope that they don't top deck a minion that's cheap. Otherwise, we're likely just going to be dead here. So, we do need to remove stuff. And I think I'm going to go about that like this. Yeah, I'm going to do it like this. Another interesting thing is if I leave this up, they have to trade. I'm not sure that that actually matters. We're just going to see if our opponent can kill us, unfortunately. Unfortunately. We'll push what we can face. So, ultimately didn't get the 5/5 down with the line that I took. It may have been better to just like hero power and get the 5/5 down. Solid alibi. They could potentially have like the commander, I don't know, the one that gives them all their spells back. Unfortunately here, our opponent top decks a Thalnos, and I think we're just dead because of all the spell power. that they have. The A1 on turn 5 was clutch for them, and that we're actually just dead to the hero power. Plus, I think they still have other stuff in hand, so bit of an unfortunate game there. A1 on 5 was just absolutely insane. I think we win if the opponent doesn't have that, but hey, sometimes your opponent has cards. That's going to do it for the video. Thank you so much for watching. Unholy Death Knight, a serious deck for serious people who are serious about climbing the ladder. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Uncorrupt. Good luck out on the ladder. Just good. Holy crap.